This is You've Got an Hour with your host, Adam Griffin, and the timer starts now. Hey y'all, oh lord, my southern roots are coming out. I am in my parents' home. Can you tell? Can you hear this accent? It is given Jones County. Oh my goodness, can you believe it is the final episode of the season? Not ever, okay? I don't know if some of y'all were rejoicing a little preemptively there. No. If you're a hater and you're listening to the podcast, keep running the numbers up, keep hating. No, we'll be back again in February. But I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and we have a wonderful, fun episode. It involves not Miss Whitney Houston, but it does involve a preacher's wife, which I'm just going to name this Mrs. Claus. Okay.
So,
Megan, I love you. I'm
love
so
you.
excited that you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on my show.
Yes.
Since the topic is about, your experience as being a preacher's wife, and this is a holiday special episode.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this topic.
Okay.
Well, part of the reason, I think it's an interesting foray, and it's an interesting thing that is not normally spoken on. We don't hear enough about that perspective.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to hear from a pastor personally. I want to hear from the wife. So
Well, you're hearing from the one who does all the work. Oh,
yeah.
Who said that?
Oh, you better. Okay, so now
I have my own movie.
We have a Mad Lib kind of vibe, Mad Gab, whatever it's called,
yes.
where you fill in the blank, adjective, noun, pronoun, all that stuff.
Okay.
This is the most gotcha thing I'll do, because I didn't tell Megan the game in advance at all.
No.
I completely said, you're coming into this blind, I'm giving you this list, fill out what an adjective is, and all these other things.
What is an adjective?
Yeah, and then I defined it. What
He
did I
told
write?
me. He's a descriptive word. I'm like, you were a teacher for 17 years, but you did not know.
I know. I just did it for my own safety.
I appreciate it.
And
No.
I honestly was like, did I even get this right? As a writer, I was like,
Yes.
is that even what that is?
I mean, what if
thank
I was
you.
drunk? I might need to know. So
Yeah,
yes.
true, right? Yeah, if you had driven here drunk, what a moment.
That would have been a problem.
Yeah, then we would really be having a different kind of talk today.
Are you having cops on this show?
Yeah, no.
Good.
This is the write-up for a movie that I think we're going to act out.
Yes.
This is Amnesia Pines, a holiday movie.
I got it. Okay.
Tune in this Thursday, 8 Central Time, as
Bonnie
works as a
Baker
in
Columbus
the big city. She
runs
into the oncoming traffic of a
PT Cruiser.
I put a weird automobile, and that's the choice you made.
I'm sorry, they look weird. They've
They
got
are
like
weird.
a station wagon
No,
side, and
they
the rest
are
is
very
okay.
strange.
Yeah.
So she leaves the big city for the
Spatula.
conference, where the population of the town is
324.
so specific.
That's very
I love it.
specific.
On the way in, she collides headfirst with
PT Cruiser.
and concusses.
Oh, no.
Saved by the local sheriff,
Julia.
she is taken to the
Pumpkin Pie.
inn to recuperate
Okay.
and gain back her memories.
Mm.
Fortunately for her, the inn is owned by the mother of...
Ernie. Please.
I have to remember these names. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Her sudden love interest.
Oh,
Now,
oh.
if this was written by AI, you know that they'd have 10 fingers on one hand.
Right, yes, of course.
Yeah, he is the father of
2.
kids, all of which were raised previously by his wife.
Vanilla Fields. She was a stripper.
Why
That's her stage name!
Okay. Yeah.
She had to raise it.
Okay. Getting it together. Okay. Vanilla Fields died of...
Cancer.
Oh. Yeah, this is a little too Hallmark.
What the hell?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
He has sworn off. Ernie has sworn off the holiday because this marks the passing of her from...
Cancer.
But through the unbridled joy of the upcoming holiday and the persistence of his overbearing mother, with no concern whatsoever for the safety of any party involved, she completely ignores any other factor for the woman that is pretty before her and needs help. So she steps in to problem solve with what is inevitable. These two lovey
Chickens.
will be in love by Christmas morning underneath the banner of the
Funny. Cedar.
shop.
No, but that's accurate.
That is
There
accurate.
is some. That town exists, and that's how.
With magic in the air and a bit of non-cocaine snow circulating too, the two lean in for a big old wet one. This kiss seals their fate, and they live
Joyfully.
ever after. Now, somewhere in there's also a dog, a girl in a wheelchair, and a jealous new friend. Does she regain consciousness at any point? Moreover, does it matter? Does anyone ever try to run her fingerprints or to contact the big city from her mobile phone. The end. That's our movie. Now, given the context, so
Yes.
these are the details we have to sort of remember because we're going to act out this film.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Well, yes.
All right. The only thing you have to remember is that you're the lead woman.
Oh, I'm Bonnie.
You're Bonnie.
It's my mother's name.
I'm trying to hide my jaw and I can't.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm jealous of Bob Marley and Scrooge right now because I need to rip it off.
Right.
Now, tell me a little bit about Bonnie's backstory. Like, I need to know her attitude going into this. Because she's a big city girl. So, like, what's her mantra in life?
She's a big city girl, but she's a baker, remember? So she went to the big city to sell her homemade Southern pies or some shit.
Okay, perfect.
Shit,
Yeah,
right.
that's what I love about Bonnie right there. Now, this is obviously Hallmark After Hours, so we can say whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. I've got a couple of scenes laid out for us, and we're going to act out the movie for you now. So here we go. Boom.
Yeah, boom.
This is a film in 10 minutes, which is about how long it would last if you got rid of the 8 commercial breaks. They have 8 commercial breaks on these.
On Hallmarks?
Yes.
Jesus.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Not me watching
This one
and
is
counting.
running on Adult Swim, though, so we don't have
Perfect.
commercial
Yeah.
breaks.
No, yeah, that's right, It's
Hallmark
just,
on Adult
here
Swim.
we go. All right.
This is Amnesia Pines on the Hallmark Channel, 8 p.m. Central Time.
She's been on the road for a while, but suddenly she swerves into oncoming traffic. A PT Cruiser hits her. She wakes up. She's in the middle of a hospital, and there's a sheriff before her named...
Julia.
Yes, and I'll be Julia in this scene.
Okay.
Honey, are you coming too yet? Hello?
Where am I?
Do you know anything about yourself? Do you know your name?
Starts with a P?
I'm gonna call you Priscilla.
Priscilla.
Oh, that was my lovely mother's name. She baked the best cookies ever.
Oh, no, that's not right. It starts with a D.
So anyway, listen, Dolly, I'm so glad that you're awake. We're going to take you on over to my best friend's house. She's got a beautiful inn over here that's called the Pumpkin Pie Inn, where my best friend Suzette runs and operates. She's got a beautiful son, but I'm not going to talk about him because that's neither here nor there. I did fall in love with him one winter's eve. But anyway, so I'm taking you over now. Swerve. Okay, they're there now. In the lobby, Bonnie has a moment to herself. I'd like to hear a little of the inner monologue of Bonnie.
The last thing I remember was putting a chocolate pie in the trunk. Where the hell am I? And why the hell is this lady telling me about her love life?
Hello, my name is Suzette, and I'd like to welcome...
Are you okay?
No, I have a condition.
Oh.
It's called allergies. But I'd like to welcome you into the Pumpkin Pie Inn, honey. You are beautiful. Where did you get your hair done?
Oh, I'm not from here, so you probably haven't heard of it. It's called Guys and Dolls down in Columbus.
You remember that, but you don't remember your name?
She said my name was Dolly.
You've got amnesia from everything else while you're recovering. Do you remember the plot?
No.
Okay,
Oh,
rewind.
God.
Yes, you've got amnesia. That's why you're in the inn.
No, I
Because
don't
listen,
remember.
Dolly, if you fucking remember where you're from, we're calling them to pick your ass up. This is not a free place to stay.
Columbus is a big town! I don't know who I know there!
Take 2. Honey, I should set the tone better. That was my fault. From what I understand, your name is Dolly?
You know, I'm not sure.
Oh, let's not strain yourself any more than that, honey. Okay, so you're going to come in here. I'm going to take you to room 311, even though we only have 12 rooms. I like to number them how I do. So come on in here, honey, and make yourself real comfortable. We are going to put you to work, though. I hope that's okay.
Okay.
You have to earn your keep.
Yes, of course.
And this is a busy holiday season.
I think I know how to make pies.
Okay,
Yes.
well, we've got a kitchen. We're going to shove you in it right now.
Maybe it'll help me remember.
So now you're in the room. One of the 5 grandchildren of Suzette is coming in to help you because this is where they like to be.
Sorry, I have allergies too. It runs in the family.
Hi, I'm Bobby. What's your name?
Hi, Bobby. I don't remember my name.
I'll
but
call you Dog.
Okay.
So, Doggy, what kind of pie are we gonna make?
Well, normally I make chocolate, but since your inn is called pumpkin pie, are you okay, hon?
I'm taking my Zyrtec. Continue.
Since your inn is called pumpkin pie, we'll make that.
I'm actually not liking that at all. It's Christmas. Why would I want pumpkin?
What do y'all eat at Christmas?
Peppermint, mocha, schnapps.
Schnapps pie?
Yeah, it's actually not cooked. It's a bit liquidy.
Damn. Okay, hand me that mug over there.
Okay. Go, 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 go. Oh, you didn't mean for me to drink it first. I'm sorry. A little backwash, but here you go. Yeah.
thanks.
Doggy, what are we going to do? What's the ingredients for this?
For schnapps pie?
Yeah.
Oh, schnapps, and a pie plate.
That's actually how we do it. You must be from here.
Oh, maybe I am.
Oh, you remind me so much of my mother.
Oh, no, honey.
So Bobby leaves. So you're baking away in the kitchen. What's the inner monologue for her at this exact moment?
While she's baking?
Yeah.
The schnapps pie?
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that this is how pies were made. I don't remember everything, but I feel like there's usually a crust.
Hi, Dolly. I don't think we've met yet. I'm Ernie. I'm Suzette's child, and I just wanted to bring you some more ingredients because for some reason my drunken son of 8 years old thinks that we can just have schnapps pie again, and I'm not having that. Here's some flour and some sugar and some more schnapps.
Oh, thank you. Is the schnapps for me or for us? Or...
There's a twinkling in the eye between them as they share this moment together of a caress of the pinky upon the schnapps bottle. My wife died of cancer.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that.
It was 5 years ago, but I don't want to talk about the past. Let's make this pie together. A great time is had. Suzette comes in and interrupts.
Honey, I want you both to go into town and fetch me some wood for the fireplace because we just ran out.
Okay, Ernie, are you busy?
No. I will take you into town because I think with your condition it would be dangerous for you to drive on your own.
Yes, and I don't have a car now.
Let's get into my PT Cruiser. Driving. Bonnie's having a moment in the car of a bit of panic. She's sweating at the brim of her hat, which is large. Too large for the PT Cruiser, in fact. It was caught in the door, but that's neither here nor there. This is Bonnie's thought as they're driving in the PT Cruiser that may have hit her.
You know, this car looks familiar. I just got in a car with a man I don't know. What if he's a murderer?
Shh. Sorry, I like to shuck corn while I'm driving. Have to multitask. Swerve! So, Dolly, is there anything that you remember about your past?
No, you know, I do remember driving into town and seeing a car. That's the last thing I remember.
Do you know what type of car it was?
You know, it looked a lot like this type of car.
An Oldsmobile? Not him gaslighting her. This is really turning into something else. This is a Lifetime movie. This is really... No. Take two.
What if he's a murderer?
You know, Dolly, I know that might not be your name, and it's probably hard to trust us because we have our own inn, and you don't know us, and I'm taking you into God knows where to get some alleged wood. And it's not a metaphor for anything sexual. But I am so glad that I am in the presence of a female company and companion. As we drive into town, I just want to show off some things that are not wood related. This right here is where I first went to school. It's a beautiful one-room schoolhouse because this is sort of like an 1840s town of 300 people. But this is where I went to school, and over here, this is a wonderful wood shop that we will be going into now.
Oh, the funny cedar.
Yes, you can read.
How cute.
Yes, your memory is coming back, Dolly.
Wait, my name is Bonnie. I remember.
Bonnie, let us go out into this field and chop some wood. Chop.
I'm back.
Bonnie, would you like some corn?
I sure would.
Okay. Roasting, popping. Great. Yes. As Bonnie and Ernie are sharing some popcorn together in the middle of this funny cedar shop, there's a Santa lingering in the back. Bonnie and Ernie are each thinking their own wish as they stare lovingly into each other's eyes at different times, because Ernie actually does have a cross eye, and you never know if he's really looking at you or not. But this is what Bonnie thinks immediately as she's staring into one of his eyes.
If I could have one wish right now, Santa, I would wish that both this man's eyes would look at me at the same time so that we could share a Christmas kiss.
And this is what Ernie thinks. Oh, shucks. Bonnie and Ernie get together into the car with their collected wood that someone else shucked. Hold on. That someone else cut up for them. And as they're driving back, there's a squirrel that dashes into the middle of the road.
No.
And there's a dog barking in the back seat because they forgot that they brought the dog. Woof, woof. Oh, my God. Bonnie, not Dolly. Are you okay?
I am now.
She puts her hands onto his shoulder. It has to be something docile. It can't be anything inappropriate. Onto his shoulder, and they continue on their journey. As they exit the vehicle, it becomes apparent to Bonnie that this may be the vehicle that she actually was hit by. She checks the front parameters to see if there's any evidence of her being hit. She sees 2 skid marks on the car, not in her pants.
Ernie,
Yes, Bonnie.
were you driving down Three Chopped Road last night at 7 p.m.?
Yes, I was, Bonnie.
And did you have an accident at that time?
In my pants or with the car?
Both.
Yes, and can't confirm.
Why can't you confirm?
Because it was in my pants, and sometimes there's an accident. But I will say, Bonnie, I did feel a bump in the road. Was that you?
I think it was!
I'm so sorry!
You can swerve to miss a squirrel, but not a woman?
Suzette comes out to save the day. Remember when you 2 were baking a beautiful pie together? Let's have some schnapps! She throws schnapps into Bonnie's face, into Ernie's face. Mama, this is what got me into trouble last night. I drank too much of the schnapps pie, and then I hit Bonnie with the car. Drink more of the pie, honey! They drink the pie together, and by the end of the afternoon, they've decided on something. Bonnie, to make up for this conundrum that I've put us under, will you marry me?
Ernie, it would be my honor.
Santa appears from the background and goes, uh-huh.
Santa played my Goofy in this
I don't know. And that's how you get it done at the Pumpkin Pie Inn. See you next time.
Bye, y'all.
And then out wheels one of the other children in a wheelchair. This is Tiny Timless.
Oh, God, no.
God bless us, everyone.
Limbs are falling everywhere. This has been Amnesia Pines on the Hallmark Channel at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. on Central Time. We'll see you next time. Hope I was real good to you this year. If I wasn't, you can bitch and moan to your parents, 'cause really, I had nothing the fuck to do with it.
We'll be right back with a topic. Okay, let's take a quick ad. Here's my mother.
Oh, ho, ho. Hee, hee, hee. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, ho, hum.
Are you doing all of these as one take? Great. No notes. One take wonder. That was my mother, and now let's hear from my father. Go ahead. Ho, ho, ho. So today we're talking about what all it entails to be a preacher's wife.
On Christmas Day?
Yeah, I thought that would be
Christmas is a Wednesday,
appropriate.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So let's set the tone here, because when you were growing up, did you grow up religious? Did you grow up going to church?
Yes, I grew up kind of a denominational mutt, and so because we moved a lot, and my mom was constantly like looking for it. My dad is a recovering Catholic, so
A recovering Catholic. I love that.
So not that he didn't go. He went to Catholic school and had like bad experiences with nuns and all that shit. And yes, so I grew up going to church in the South.
Yeah.
You did also?
Yes, I did. We grew
Okay.
up going to a Methodist church in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents still go to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are they? But the Methodists, I feel like they're one of the more progressive.
That's actually an interesting point, and this is a total tangent. I might cut this, but so the Methodist faith actually just split in two. They voted, every church voted whether to stay United Methodist, which is more progressive, or they went world wide, which sounds like it would be more inclusive, but it's actually completely not.
Yes.
They like specifically don't want, from what I understand, anyone gay.
Women.
They don't want women pastors. It's very, very odd.
Can we talk about when did this happen? Just now?
My parents' church just did it 2 years ago.
Okay, so you guys are kind of the caboose of the denominations doing that.
Aging up out of your parents' households.
Yes.
Did you decide to continue with that faith, or did you move on to a different one?
Hey, that is a loaded question. I started working for the church when I was 18. I grew up, I'm a musician, and I grew up playing piano, of course, and they always wanted me to play. I remember, like, my mom's church, like the church I was baptized in, they always wanted me to play, and I was like, no, I don't play at church. I'm not playing at church. That's not what I do. Mostly because I feel like, I don't even know why. Well, I was a teenager, and I was like, hell no. And I don't know what it's about. Like, I was really stage frighty as a kid, and so maybe that, but the piano players in those types of churches also just kind of let it rip. They improvise. Like, most of them don't read music. There's, and I'm very attached to my sheet music. I like to fucking see what I'm playing. So, like,
yeah, you're not doing jazz music.
Yeah, no, thank you. Right, but a lot of those players are like that, and so I think I was just nervous about it. When I was 18, I moved out. I was living on my own, and there was a Methodist church like right around the corner from me, and they had called the high school. I was the show choir accompanist. And they had called
At 18, that's a lot of responsibility very early on.
Yeah. No, I didn't work. The jazz band was the stage band for the choir. So I was the piano player for the jazz band, which meant I got stuck doing a lot of the accompanying at 16 and 17. And so when I was 18, I graduated, and they called like the school because their organist had cancer. and they were like, do you have anyone that can come fill in? And they recommended me. And so they called me, and that's how I started working for the church. And I hadn't really, my mom kind of quit going to church after Reverend Smith, the pastor who baptized me, passed. His son took over the church. I don't know. There was drama. You know how that is.
Yeah,
like,
the successor can change the vibe of a congregation in a way that's like, hey, I'm either going to stick with this or I'm going to find something new.
Yeah, right. And we were like, goodbye.
Especially when they don't have the parameters of like, hey, we have a system in place of how this works.
Right.
Because then it feels a little culty when it's like, okay, it's just going to go directly to the son, and what qualifications do you have?
Yeah.
Is it the same style? Is it the same thing
Yes.
that's going on here? That's confusing.
That is, and it's one of the pitfalls of not being denominationally associated. That's one of like fucking issues with it. So we left, and so I went to youth group on my own in my teenage years on a nearby church, but I kind of never. I was just kind of like, whatever. And my family is also fucking crazy. I hope none of my family never listens. I'm not going to tell them about this.
I can also cut any of it. It's up
no,
to you.
No. But like, there was this period of time where they decided that nobody was teaching the correct word, the real word, like whatever, like fake news kind of thing. P.S. that they're all on that train now too. And we had house church, just our family. I played the piano for that, and my uncle, who is an ordained minister, preached.
Just for your family unit.
Just for my family unit.
How many people
not
would
my
attend
immediate
that?
Family. It was my mom, her two sisters, her brother, my grandparents, and all the grandkids.
How long did that go on for?
A year, maybe.
That sounds kind of isolating.
Yeah, you fucking think. And it was weird. And it's weird because it was over the rapture, which is
Like they thought the rapture was coming at that time, and that's why you isolated?
No,
or?
they didn't agree with the teaching that the scripture that says one will be taken and the other will be left, which is kind of the basis for
that Left Behind series.
the Left Behind series, which it's all bullshit. I'm sorry, the rapture's not a thing. Like, in my opinion, that's in my opinion now. And they got to this place weirdly where they were like, we think one taken and the other left means one dies and the other survives, and it's the beginning of the tribulation. And they kind of, it was this weird theology for the time that they decided was the correct theology. So we all started having house church. Do you know how many therapists I've had that I've told this story to, and they're like, so you grew up in a cult? And I'm like, yeah, I know, I was there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable with me including that in the podcast? Okay.
Because I think it's helpful for people to, like, if you have any listeners that have been through this, which I think people don't fucking talk about this stuff.
They don't, and that's like, not only you're having the pressure of your family to talk about whatever's going on and living there, but you also have to talk about your spirituality with them on a personal level, and with someone who is an ordained pastor genuinely, or was this something self-appointed?
No, he is. He's ordained through the Nazarene Church, but also he's a psycho. My like, my family is not okay. Pray for us. No, my uncle is now a diagnosed schizophrenic.
Okay.
Like, he burned his house down
Oh, goodness.
and blamed it on a turkey fryer so that the church would rebuild his house for free.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a manipulative psychopath. So there's a lot of
Interesting.
things. Yeah, and he was kind of leading.
And
the
here he
charge.
is. I brought him in. Could you imagine? Oh, my God. Did he choose to leave as a parishioner, or was he kicked out of his church? Do you know?
Of course I know. It's my family.
So he was kicked out of his church, and then he started
I
doing
think
church
he
for
was
your
run
family.
off. Yes, because he was living in Ohio. He dedicated my brother, and I was like, that one didn't take. Doesn't count. And
Your brother's no longer part of any church?
No, my brother's an atheist. Well, I won't say he's an atheist. I think he's more agnostic. But he's not into it. And he didn't grow up in the church the same way I did, because my mom got fucking tired after the divorce. You know?
Right.
She was pregnant with him when we left Dad.
Okay.
So
And it's just the two of you, right? It's you and your
just the two
brother.
of us, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're full brother and sister, which everybody always asks. We're 10 years apart.
And that is interesting because you kind of diametrically went in your directions. Like
Yes.
he's completely sworn it off, and
Yeah.
you're now, sort of married to a church.
I really am. I really am.
The reason I ask for these backstories, I think,
Yeah.
is not only contextually, but it is the makeup of your faith and what you
Yes.
think, of course.
Yes,
But
it is.
when you went out and were looking for a partner, I don't know if you were looking for a partner, but when you thought, I have an idea for what I'm going to look for in a partner, was it someone that is faith-based, or were you like,
No.
I'm going to marry a pastor, or were you didn't care?
No, I was not planning on marrying a pastor.
Right.
And actually, when we met, that was not his career path. Yes. No, he was not. We were both music majors, music education majors. We met in music school. And I remember, oh my God. So I was still, I had quit going to church, but I was still under the brainwashing, and I'm going to use that word because it's the truth, of my mother and her faith when I was in college. Really kind of hadn't gone to church enough on my own outside of that to, even though I moved out when I was 18, to really develop my own version. And I really didn't care to at that point. I was just kind of like, whatever. And then I started working for the church. So then you're in church every damn week.
Right.
You're right, because you get paid to be there.
And it's a different obligation when you're being paid versus
Yes.
choosing.
Right, correct. And I have been working for the church almost 100% of the time since then, since I was 18.
Were you thinking I'm going to continue working in churches then?
My plan was to teach, and my plan was always to be a band director. I ended up teaching elementary music for 17 years, and it was my most favorite thing. When I met BJ, my husband, he was a voice major, and I was an instrumental major, and we met in music school, and so there's a class you have to take as a music major called oral skills, where, right?
And his name is BJ,
Yes,
so leave that there. Leave that there.
And my poor baby, and he had to grow up with that in the 90s.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, middle school, not great. Not great
Not
for him.
that's
But
when you
his
don't
name-
want
his,
it.
His mother wanted to name him Billy Joel, and his dad was like, "Fuck you," and so so they came up with Benjamin Joseph
As a compromise.
as a compromise, and so they called him PJ.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the reason.
So
Sure.
what's an oral skill class? What are you doing in
Oral
that?
skills? It's ear training. It's an ear training class, and so we met in that class. And there's a joke among music majors, kind of universally, that singers cannot count. They can't do rhythm to save their life, and instrumentalists cannot sing. And so we had a test.
Yeah, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. We had a test, and we were all during tests. The professor would go into his office and call us in one at a time, and we were all in our classroom. And I remember him being like, "Hey, you instrumentalist, come here. How do you play this rhythm?" And that's kind of how we met. And so I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking voice lessons from this girl." Da 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 da. And he was like, "Oh, you don't want to take lessons with her. You want to take lessons with me because you needed the money."
What a good sales pitch.
And that's how we met, and the rest is history.
What
Yeah.
was his goal? What was he intending to do when he...
Music educator.
So you were both going to be teachers
Yes.
in the music field?
Yeah, I think
love
he was going
that.
to be a choral director, and so I was not at all looking for this, and I don't know that he was either. My husband got a literal. You know how people are like, "You've seen Sister Act?"
Oh, of course.
When she's like, "What? So Mary Clarence, how did you get the call? What was your, the call into ministry?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I was living in Vegas. You don't know how hard it is to get a call until you're living in Vegas." That shit. My husband got a literal phone call into ministry.
Oh, really?
Yes, literally.
What was the call?
He knew someone who knew someone, and this church that he was that we ended up working at together, they needed a music director, and so they called him up. They literally called him up and was like, "Hey," and he was like, "Whatever, I need money." And so he went to this interview that he didn't know was an interview in his shorts and t-shirt and backpack from school.
They probably loved that.
They did. He got the job, obviously, and that's the church where they ultimately ended up hiring me as the organist.
So you were both working there at the same time then?
Yes, he was my boss.
During college?
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting. And what
Yeah.
was that? What was that denomination?
Christian Church Disciples of Christ. It's a very Leo American denomination. It's who we are now, by the way. That's why I know anything.
Oh, you've
about
stuck with that denomination.
It. No.
Oh, no. Okay.
We've been back and forth, but that's who we're with now. And yeah, but they had to, because of the government laws of like tax purposes and 501c3, you have to declare as a denomination. So we're pretty loose, but that's a story for another day. A loose denomination. But yes, and while we were dating, I think he just decided, I don't know. He was like, I think I'm going to go into ministry full time, and I'm going to.
How far into your relationship was that?
I think we were engaged. Nope. It was right before we got engaged. So maybe 2 years, 2.5 years in. And I remember being like, no.
I do not want to date a pastor.
I do not want to be a pastor's wife. And I remember us having this conversation because, believe it or not, this is the toned down version of Megan. I used to be worse, I think. And he was kind of like, so you're going to need to like tone this down, right? And I was like, bitch, no, please. Like, you know what, if you want to find somebody that's going to tone it down, there's the door, you know? And he was just like, never mind about that, what I just said.
Yeah, ignore me.
And I feel like I have.
You better put him in check immediately.
Like, who do you think you're talking
Yeah,
to?
right. I was like, I don't like that energy at all.
I think he was concerned for his career, and probably rightfully so.
I get it.
You know?
Because you're a package deal. When you're buying into a couple for a congregation, you have to really look at the family.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And in the beginning, we worked together. We had several jobs because, you know, seminary is a journey. And he started his seminary education while we were still living in Richmond, Virginia. Yes. And we were working for the Disciples of Christ together. And we could not afford to continue with them because it was a small church and they couldn't afford to pay us. So we went to an Episcopal church as a team, as a music team.
Was that a big shakeup?
Yeah.
Because Episcopal is very routine, very almost Catholic, and they're upbringing.
Junior. Yeah, when a Catholic marries a Baptist, they go to the Episcopal church.
Mean that middle ground.
That's how it is. It was really high church, and so it was a lot of learning for me as an organist. I didn't really get into the theology there. You would be surprised how many church musicians are not even Christian. They don't give a shit. 100%.
Like any other job.
Yes.
And if you're a musician, it's a pretty well-paying job in a local community.
Yeah,
and it's stable. It's not going anywhere. It's every Sunday.
And if you're an organist, what the actual fuck else do you do?
Where are you going to play that? What are you, Phantom of the Opera? Are you going to hide in a cave?
Put a mask on. There's like 3 professional organists.
Well, if they work in a church, they're not probably wearing a mask anyway. Yeah, that's a COVID joke for you.
Yeah, the Christians didn't do well.
No, they did not do well on that test.
They did not. They failed that test. We loved that church so much.
How long were you there?
3 years.
Did you get married in that church?
No. I remember they were contacting us while we were on our honeymoon in Rome, and we had to email them back and be like, we need you to piss off. We are on our honeymoon. We will deal with you when we get back. And they wanted me to come audition like the day after we got back, and I still have my wedding nails on. You can't play organ like that. It's like...
Oh, that was probably so fun for you, though.
And I straight up said, I remember Frank, the committee chair, I was like, Frank, I'm not taking the nails off, so deal with it. These were expensive. And he was like, okay. And we got the job.
We'll do it. Click, click, click.
Yeah, click, click, click. We got the job. We were there for 3 years. And we ended up leaving Virginia because our families were crazy. And they were causing problems. And when we went to Chicago, which is where we moved next, we went back to the Disciples of Christ. We were in Disciples of Christ.
So then you could really, it wasn't just I'm being interviewed for a position. Now I can choose what kind of denomination I want to be in, right? Was that the first time he could really take charge of that?
I would say so, because we interviewed with some church that their theology was, nope, not for us. And they offered us the job, and we were like, hard pass. And they were like, name your price. They were like, how much do we have to pay you to come here? As the musicians. And I remember very clearly us standing in the kitchen of our house talking about this, and I was like, my faith's not for sale. And he was like, neither is mine. No. and we
Good.
Yeah, we ended up not doing it. And then after we left Chicago, we came to California, and we were in the Methodist Church again as musicians, and then we were in the Lutheran Church as musicians. Missouri Synod, if you know the difference, if any of you out there in listener land.
Explain it.
It's ELCA is the open and affirming and friendly church, and Missouri Synod is anti-everybody.
And that's where you worked?
That's where we worked. Anti-women.
So your faith did go on sale for a second there.
Nah, we just didn't subscribe.
Oh, okay.
We knew that was gonna be like a temporary assignment, and I think we didn't know enough about that denomination. They didn't. That was very strictly a music job.
Right.
Yeah.
You were checked out from that spiritually.
Yeah, right. And they wouldn't serve us communion because we weren't Lutheran.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, and
in different faiths.
That is why we left.
Right.
We got sick of the bullshit and we left.
So we went from, just to catch up, we went from Chicago.
Yes.
Then we moved to California, and we did a couple of different varying jobs here in different fields.
Yes.
At what point did he become ordained officially?
After we left the Lutheran Church. He was in school.
Here in California.
Yes. He was in school at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena. And when we left the Lutheran Church, he was working part-time for the Disciples of Christ again as at the regional level, which if you're Catholic, it's like the diocese.
It's a step or two above just working for a particular church.
Right. It's a group of churches. And he was doing part-time youth and young adult ministry while he was doing his seminary degree, which... When you have a partner doing a seminary degree, you are also doing a sideline seminary degree because it's like so intensive study. It's very, he told me about someone that he heard describe it about like as dissecting a frog, you know, like, because you really dissect your faith while you're in seminary, and like you can put that frog back together, but it's never going to hop again. Like, it's very different. Your faith after that intensive study experience is really different. And so
so would your relationship be?
Yes. And I would agree with that. Yes. That I think that changed a lot of things for both of us. And I was sort of on a path, having come out of that very conservative, very evangelical, women shouldn't be preachers, women shouldn't be leading, you got to confess yourself, if you die with a sin on your heart, you're going straight to hell, the entire gay community is going straight to hell, all of that bullshit that I grew up with, that I had to unlearn and go out of. And BJ, my husband, was really instrumental in that, because he was going through seminary. And so when you really start to study and look at what the word actually says, look at what the Bible actually says, all of that theology is bullshit. It's all bullshit. I'm sorry. If any of you out there still believe that, look it up. I don't know what to tell you. Do
Yeah, I hate when people try to quote Leviticus, because it's like there's so many things going on in here that no one's subscribing to at all. No.
Right. And also,
like, if you're on your period, you're not even supposed to be in the church.
There you go.
And I'm like, what's going on with this?
You're not supposed to eat.
Right.
People who worship the King James Version, he's the one who put the word homosexual in the Bible at all. Yeah, it's just like when you know the history and you start to know how the Bible was put together
and reinterpreted,
and I'm constantly asking my husband to look up. They have like this Bible software called BibleWorks that like has Greek and Hebrew translation, and so I'm constantly like, what does this word mean? What does this phrase mean? What did this really mean? Instead of just going, let's listen to this translation, or what I would say 90% of the church population does is, let's listen to the pastor. It's a problem. So
because then you're idolizing a human above.
100%. And isn't that why we left the Catholic Church? Isn't that why the Protestants left? So that they didn't have to have a go-between between them and God. They could go straight to God, or read the Bible for themselves, or all that shit. Isn't that? And here we are doing this. And during that period, I feel like that was a major shift in personal faith for me. There's a difference between growing up and just kind of accepting your parents' faith because you have to, because that's the house you're in and everything, and then developing your own faith, which is a totally separate thing, and not everybody gets there. I feel privileged to have had that upbringing now, because I know the language and I know the fear that you have to go through to come to the other side of it, and because you feel like you're going to hell every time you change your mind about... Have you seen those memes, especially around like the Black Lives Matter movement, that are like, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change your mind when you get new information. Christians have a really hard time with that, because, and I've explained this to my more liberal friends before and been like, if you grew up in that and you're hanging on to those things and you go, oh, if I was wrong about this thing about God,
it could be a domino effect.
What else was I wrong about? Yes, and then your whole faith is going to fall apart around you, and so you hang on really tight to things, even if they're bullshit, even if you have reason to know that it's not true, or you know in your heart it's not true.
That's an important factor for people to consider, because if you're indoctrinated into something,
yes, it's so
oftentimes
hard.
You don't know what you actually think about anything independently of it, and so when you have to consider something, yes, then you have to consider it all.
Yes, it's so hard. It's so hard. And it's worth it. You should.
Everybody should be doing that.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
So he gets out of the seminary, and then he's going to be positioned somewhere. What was that process like?
That process. So once he was ordained, he was still working in regional ministry. He did not become a congregational pastor until 2020.
Did he want to do that? Because if you're working at a regional district thing, when you're working in that level.
Yeah.
It's higher up than just working specifically with a group. And everybody has different passions, of course. But did he want to work in the root level like that?
No, he didn't. I don't think he ever wanted to be a congregational pastor. He very much feels called into regional ministry because it's just a different... I don't know that I would... I think, yes, hierarchically, people see that as higher up.
I do, because
yes.
I'm not involved in it.
No, yes. And in a lot of denominations, it is. I'm not shitting on that. Because, like, in the Catholic Church, there's definitely a hierarchy. In the Methodist Church, yes. Our denomination, like I explained, is, like, super loosely structured because it was never supposed to be a denomination. So the region doesn't have any power over the local churches. But regional ministry is a different thing because there's 110 churches in our region. So you have a different set of resources. You kind of have a different focus. You're providing resources for the local congregations, or you're providing trainings for the pastors. Or
Is it almost more like a mentorship for these people to reach out to and you to sort of help guide and shape?
Yes, and to provide resources that the local church cannot afford to provide for themselves.
So he wants to work with the pastors more so than the congregations.
Yes, I would say that that's fair. He has created pastoral trainings around boundary training, like which includes financial boundaries, sexual boundaries, personal boundaries, all the things. He's run those trainings. He's provided. He's an anti-racism trainer, and so he's provided those trainings, which are required in our denomination. And I think that he just really enjoys the aspect. The regional ministry is a pastor to the pastors, if that makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah.
So when he was working, though, I'm sure there was a learning curve with this.
Yes.
Deciding that he does want to work regionally instead of working with a congregation. What was that, when he worked for a congregation, how long did that last?
He's with them now.
Oh, he's doing it now.
Yeah, that's where we are now.
Started in 2020 and has lasted about 4 years now.
He got placed at this church in 2020, in March 1st of 2020, ladies and gentlemen. And if you remember, the pandemic started on March 17th. So keep that in mind.
A lot of time to really get to know the community.
2.5 whole weeks. It was great. Literally, it was so bad. And this was a very unhealthy church that had their pastor had been there for 35 years, which in our denomination, it's congregational authority, congregationally run. So congregations can decide to keep someone there forever if they want. They don't have to be ordained. There's not a lot of rules with us. We have 3 things that we're all supposed to agree on, and I can't even say we all agree on this. But all our churches are supposed to agree on Jesus is who he said he is. We baptize by immersion because that's the way Jesus did it. Not that
So
it's
fully
fucking
going
nice.
in the water.
Fully going in the water. But we accept all forms of baptism. We're not dicks. We don't care. That's how we do it, but we recognize all other baptisms as...
When they do baptize within the church, do they have a bathtub sort of situation?
Yes, bathtub situation. Unless you're in a little tiny church that doesn't have one, and then you go to the river. Like there are rivers in California. Where do you go? To the dam? Anyways.
You go to the LA River and you pray you don't get syphilis.
Right, exactly. You go to the dog park. And then we take communion every week. That's it. That's the only 3 things that we agree on. Everything else is really up to the congregation, and you're very encouraged to kind of explore and figure out your own faith. So he was working at the regional level. We went to the church, the congregation, because the region decided to help this congregation out. So he had a partnership job. He was working for the region and the church because it's a small church and they couldn't afford a full-time pastor.
When you say it's a small, what were the numbers coming into it?
15, 20?
15 to 20 people. Yeah.
Yeah, smaller, maybe even smaller than that. And we're at about 30 now because we've had some people get pissed and leave and other people come in, and that's always the case when you have pastoral leadership changeover, I think. So we are still at that church, and it's a Disciples of Christ church because that's where we are now. And he finally they were in a very old building, 100-year-old building that they could no longer afford to upkeep, and they kind of had to be brought to that realization a little bit. And I'm so proud of them because they did. And BJ, my husband, kind of laid out in front of them, these are your choices. We're renting right now as we get our shit together, and we're not planning to buy until we hit membership goal, a certain membership goal, and a certain financial goal.
I think that's a smarter probably outlook from a business strategy.
Yes. We have always worked together. Our relationship started when we were working together. He was my boss. He's always been my boss. So we've always kind of had to navigate that, and I think we figured it out early in the relationship because we had to. Because I was the organist and he was the music director or the worship pastor or whatever, and so I'm technically under him, but he doesn't treat me that way. Like I think we have a pretty good working relationship when it comes to that, and I'm not going to say we do well leaving work at work because no pastors do. I mean, it's like being a teacher. You take it home, right? That's not part of the job is leaving it at work. But generally speaking, I would say, we get into our bitch matches. Of course we do. And we're great at fighting because we both are stubborn and have a temper. So we'd be fighting about everything. But I am very you're the pastor. What do you want to do here? I ain't making no damn decisions. I don't get paid enough to make decisions.
Right.
So, and beforehand, so I'm in a unique position because I'm the secretary and the pastor's wife. So that's kind of double duty for me. And
Yeah, because what does a pastor's wife entail?
Yeah.
What is that role?
Yeah. Well, if you're in the South, as you probably know, and I'm saying she because in the South it was very like now it's pastors.
Well, for you it's
spouses.
she. For you it's she.
For me it's she, and for a lot of denominations it's still she, and for a lot of churches that haven't gotten to that point it's still she. So I just want to say that I recognize that not all pastors' spouses are she, and there are gay couples, and like I get it. I know all of that. I'm only speaking from my experience here. There's this expectation that you're going to be like this amazing host, and that you're going to like have events at your house, because sometimes it's the church's house, right? If you live in the parsonage, and then there's even more of an expectation, and that you're going to keep the house a certain way, and that you're going to maybe lead the women's group. That's often a thing, or that you're going to be heavily involved with the children's ministry, that you're going to lead, you're going to teach Sunday school or what the fuck ever. I would say in the South, very often the pastor's wife is also a piano player and gets that job, which I already had that job, right? I'm already a musician. I was a musician before we were together, and it definitely feels a lot like churches get two for the price of one a lot of the time, because the pastor's wife is going to do a shit ton of work pretty much every day. And if you have kids, we don't have kids. And this is one of the reasons we decided not to have children, is because we don't want them to have to deal with the life of a PK. Like that's I feel so deeply for those kids, because it's so hard, because it's like they expect you never to have marital problems. They expect you, there are definitely non-work, quote unquote, non-church expectations that come with the role. Like, I remember my husband interviewed with a church out here in LA when we were living in Chicago, and it was a phone interview or some shit, or a Zoom interview maybe, and they asked him, get ready for this, Adam, you know me, so you're gonna laugh so fucking hard at this. They wanted to know what I was like, and they were like, the pastors' wives here are expected to wear dresses, and they're expected to do this and this and this, and my husband was legit like, yeah, so my wife is not gonna wear like little white gloves and throw tea parties. Like, if that's what y'all be thinking, we can go now. Like, we don't even gotta continue this conversation. He was like, I don't even think my wife owns a dress. And he was like, she's an organist, number one, and they wear pants because they play with their feet, and number two,
how's that gonna work?
Yeah, how's that gonna work? Most organists we wear robes. And I was an elementary music teacher, so I sat on the floor with my kids all day. I always wore pants. So that was my wardrobe. Anyway, my husband was like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? So there is this expectation, I think, of like, you never have marital problems. Your kids are perfect little angels and are never, never misbehaved. You don't have any spiritual crisis, which is bullshit. Everyone has that, and you lead Bible studies, or you lead the prayer, or you, like I said, the women's group, or this, that, and the other, or you organize what the hell ever, toys for tots, like all that kind of shit tends to fall to the pastor's wife. And it's just this unspoken expectation. And a lot of the time it has to do with whatever the previous pastor wife did. It can be that. And it's like, let us have our own personality. Let us have our own. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, like, as they're getting to know me, and then they find out what my husband does for a living, they're like, I'm sorry, what? You're a pastor's wife? And I'm like, weren't fucking expecting that, were you? And they're like, surprise. First of all, you just said the fuck. And I'm like, I know. Because I just don't think God cares about that shit, but that's another story for another day. So yeah, it's this cultural expectation, and it's not just America, interestingly enough. But I
like how you've sort of separated yourself from him in that regard, though. You're like, this is his job.
This is his job.
And I don't need to have any of those things, those parameters that I need to fall into. No. I don't need to fit into any of that, because that doesn't exist. It's not real.
It's not real.
It's a concept.
Yes.
It's a concept of a plan.
Yeah. It's a
I'll delete that, but I just had to say it for you right now.
No, please don't. It's a concept of. It's true though. And I don't try to make anybody believe anything one way or the other. I'm like, I'm not that kind of Christian. I'm like, if
we wouldn't be friends if you were.
Right? Yeah. Right.
We really wouldn't.
I'm like, I'm not interested in making,
because that is a form of pressure, and not only pressure, it is a form of brainwashing. Yeah. Because to say you have to exemplify in this way, it's toxic.
Yeah.
I don't care what the example is.
Right.
It could be like a diet fad. It could be, what you think about a pop star even. It's like, you don't need to be subscribing to anything as my friend. You don't need to operate any way other than where you are.
Yeah.
And you do that, which I appreciate.
Yes, and so do you, actually. I actually told my husband that when I was, like, changing into my pajama pants before I came here. I was like, because I know I was like, Adam is somebody that you're like immediately comfortable around because he's comfortable with himself and he is 100% himself. So you feel like you can be yourself.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
I'll probably cut that. I don't like compliments.
But I did.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that I reflect that. Is what I'm saying.
Yes. Definitely do. And I was like, that was part of the conversation where I was like, it's a real shame you've never met Adam. And I was like, because I think.
Well, we will. Doesn't need to be a time on it.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be a timestamp.
But and we were talking about the church not people in the church not understanding hospitality, and I was like, because they don't operate like that, right? Because they are not comfortable with themselves or their faith or whatever. And it's a struggle. It's a journey for everyone. Like wherever you are in your faith journey or not is fine. And Christians need to get the fuck on board with that and stop bothering people. like I'm not going to go door to door. I'm not going to do it. Although again, Mormons, very successful.
I know, which is so shocking. I've never seen people be so open to strangers coming to the door, knocking on the door, and receiving a random book from them.
Yeah. Oh, when I was a kid, there was a Mormon housing unit right around the corner from us, and she would let them in just because she liked to argue with them.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, yes, that's like a very Christian thing that happens and transpires.
She's going to convert them. And she did. There was one that left the fucking faith and went home. We used to have them over for dinner and shit. I'm not even kidding. Elder Ballard, if you're out there. No, it wasn't Elder Ballard. Elder Ballard stuck with it. Elder Smith, if you're out there.
I like Elder Ballard way better.
That
is so interesting. The life you've lived. I mean, we've already covered so many topics from you. No, it's good. I sort of encapsulate here and then ask a couple more questions if we have time. But,
sure.
You grew up in an environment that was difficult.
Yeah.
You not only did you go Pentecostal, but then you had a family church that was directly going on. Now you're a pastor's wife, which is such a 180 from that. Did you ever think as a kid that this is where you'd be?
No. Well, I never thought as a kid that I would be married, to be honest. I was not down with the 2.5 kids and a picket fence and a husband. I was not down with that at all. And I met my husband, and you know how that goes. Like all your shit goes right out the window. And we've been married 19 years next month. And he's been
Congrats.
a pastor. Thank you. Oh wait, not next month. Shit, November. It's not October yet. In November.
It was your 19th anniversary last month.
Right? I'm gonna be 100% transparent right now because that's how I always am. There are a lot of things I'm struggling with faith-wise right now. It was a long road for me to be able to change my opinion on things, like I talked about earlier. And now when I look back, I'm like, that was so fucking dumb. Why did I spend so much time worrying? Number one,
Can I speak on that for a second?
Yes.
I think as an individual, we always are learning and growing if we're open to the opportunity. That's why you don't stop at a certain age. Just because you're an adult at 18, in some people's minds, other people's minds, 33 for me.
Same.
I don't think that you need to limit when you're growing and changing.
Yes.
And you can't judge what journey you went down for that. So you have to stop self-defeating on that.
And I think part of it is seeing now how, and I don't know your story, actually. I would really like to hear your story growing up in the church as a gay man.
Easy.
Really?
I don't have the traditional story with that. My parents are very accepting, and
I knew your
their
family
church
was.
is very accepting of it and specifies it that way.
Good.
But we didn't get close about any of this until the split. And they're on the podcast because we get along so well as a result of how they handled the split.
Your church is on the podcast.
No, my parents are on the podcast,
yes.
and they're very faith-driven individuals, and I think it can be a beautiful thing for people if they do operate it from the way that you're operating from and the way that they're operating from.
Yeah.
So looking at the trajectory of what's going on in our culture and how Christians tout themselves outwardly, it's not everyone doing that. Like any other thing that goes on, and that's faith included, any mentality and branch that you have can have this sort of sector of cesspool.
Oh yeah. There's bad
terror.
Apples in every bunch. We just have
There's
a lot
bad
of
apples in every bunch.
Orchards in the church. Full fucking.
But how do you combat that? How do you deal with that on a daily basis? Because I know that as you are a faith-driven individual, how do you deal with that?
Well, right now, for example, my husband is a co-leader, one of the leaders in a book study called Baptizing America, and it's a book written about Christian nationalism being bullshit. And so we invite our church members to participate in stuff like that so that it starts conversations for people who may still be hanging on to that kind of theology, you know, and
that is so impressive that he does that.
Oh yeah, yes, and he led a series called Race Matters, and it was a series about racism in the church. Yeah, the misogyny, the racism, the hate in the church, because it's easier to unite people against something, right? Okay.
Every day.
Yeah, right. That's how Trump is so popular. I said what I said, because it's a hate-based thing, and that's why I think Christian nationalism has been on the rise, is because that is how those people relate to their faith, because it is a hate-based faith. And it's, I remember growing up, and this is what I think I feel bad about when I look back over my journey. And like, I know I can't, because I was a kid and you're impressionable and whatever, and I still have a long ways to go. But like the years I spent thinking that my friends were going to hell because they said fuck or whatever, and now it's my favorite, or because they were gay or supported gay people. And it just breaks my fucking heart that I thought that, and that I'm like, what an idiot I was, and just was I part of hurting people, because so many people have been hurt by the church. Was I ever part of that? I just, it's something that's when Jesus says repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. I don't think he means make sure at the end of the day you list off all your sins and and tell me what you did bad. I think he means make sure, like, continue to grow and be educated and change on the things that you're hurting, the way you're hurting other people, you know, because the greatest of these is love. This is a slippery slope with Christians, like, some about to piss off some Christians. But if your theology is based on telling other people how to live their life, it's not Jesus's theology. I'm sorry. That was the real message of Jesus, was the love piece. So anything that I think or do that could be perceived as not loving towards someone else in the context of faith is not the right answer.
Period.
But I do think when I can exemplify, hey, if somebody's struggling with Christianity and the way that it treats people and it demonizes people like myself,
yes,
I would like to amplify that this is a better example. This is the way it can go, and in my opinion, should go.
Yeah, my opinion too.
I can't tell somebody how they should have an identity within spirituality, of course.
Right.
But I do think that this is a good example. You are a good example.
Oh, thank
so
you.
that's why I had you on today.
I'm trying to be. But I think, like, to your question about, like, how do I deal with it? I'm privileged, I guess, in a way, to have grown up in...
That anti-racism is working out well.
Yeah.
I see you checking your privilege.
Checking my privilege. Yes, I know, right?
In a room full of white people,
I
you
know.
better...
Yeah, but I have privilege over you as a cis person, so...
You better have it over me. Excuse me. She said over. She literally stood up. It was so rude.
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
But, like, I mean, I know that, and like, it's my responsibility to take that privilege, and my husband is very aware of this too, as a white cis man. It's our responsibility to take that privilege and
you're in a leadership role.
Yes, and use our voice to amplify other voices, or to... This is where I was going to say I feel privileged, even though it was a little bit of a shit show when I was a kid. A little shit show. Now I know that language. I can speak that language. I can speak the language of the evangelicals because I grew up in it. I know the path out of it and how scary and difficult it is how scary and difficult it feels, at least, when you're walking it.
Wasn't she a fabulous guest? We've had so many wonderful guests this year, and I'd like to just leave all of you with some wonderful moments, our year in review, a little recap from this season. So here are some of my favorite moments, and soon to be, if they weren't already, your favorite moments from this podcast. Beginning with...
That's time. No matter what I was saying, it's wrapped up and out. Thank you for listening to the podcast. You can catch full episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. I've had an hour. Thanks for listening and watching along with me. That's time. That was fun.
You're so giddy. I love it.